Welcome to our show, Lead to Scale. This podcast is sponsored by Algo AI Partners. We help fintech services companies and businesses scale using smart AI solutions. If you want to book a free consultation, find out more, click the link in the description below. Today, we've got Erik, managing partner of Golden Tree Wealth Partners, Chicago-based firm pioneering a CFO-as-a-Service model, and that's redefining what business owners should expect from tax accounting and advisory services. Something more than transactional; it's an actual personal service that Erik is very proud of. So let's get into this, Erik. How did you first get into the financial services and wealth management?
When I graduated college, that's when the big recession hit in real estate, and I lost a small business I was running at the time when I was in college. It was a marketing business, and when the recession hit, no one had really any money to pay for marketing, and they were losing their houses and losing their commercial properties, so everything went chaotic. And that was about the time that I started to repay back my student loans. So I had to find something quick, and I landed on my feet, and got a job at working at the bank at J.P. Morgan Chase, and did that for 7 years. That was my introduction to finance because uh, I thought I was going to get into marketing, or maybe business consulting. Landed in finance, surprisingly, banking and finance. After 7 years of working in the bank, kind of understood how banks work, how money works, how investments and lending works. And so getting my investment license and insurance license, getting trained and working at one of the largest banks in the world, uh, got a lot of knowledge, training, great training, and it kind of projected my career. In I fell in love with finance after that. From there, I transitioned to become a partner and a managing director for top two of the top insurance companies in the world. Grew financial advisors as a team and trained them. Built a book of business myself as a financial advisor. And as of January 2020, I started my own firm called Golden Tree Wealth Partners. Quite a time to start a business right before the pandemic outbreak.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean,
so
there's a correlation, right? Your first marketing, and then you have the crash, and
I
then
know
the
it's like
pandemic.
I have the niche for timing, I guess. So but that's just me. I have terrible timing and things, but it allows me to pivot and think on my feet. And at the time, no one was moving any money. No one was thinking about, investing at that time. People were thinking, oh my God, is this the end of the world? There's a shutdown. And specifically here in Chicago, most businesses were shut down for most of the year. And so, I had to think on my feet and I say, okay, well, no one needs a financial planner right now. But the businesses that are struggling, they need help. Their businesses are shut down. They still have a payroll. They still have employees that they need to take care of, even though they're shut down. So, what I found was my niche was to help these business owners get funding, whether it be from the economic disaster impact loans or the PP loans, and so many CPAs were getting overrun. They weren't calling back my clients. The bankers didn't really know how to handle these clients, and so there was a huge gap and a huge need for somebody that knew how to walk them through how to take out these loans issued by the government. And so that was my little niche right there, is just helping business owners get funding so that they can at least run payroll and still have cash coming into the business, even though everything was shut down. Uh, and it kind of rolled into, me looking at all the things that went wrong where CPAs were not calling back their clients. They were used to being transactional, not relationship based. So, I'm like, okay, well, the CPAs are dropping the ball right now. The bank is dropping the ball right now. No one's really helping small and mid-sized businesses really stay afloat. And so this is my new niche. So what I did is I used a little bit of savings to acquire a couple of CPA books that are, CPAs that were just ready to retire or kind of start to taper down. I said, okay, well, let me work out a deal where I capture your book of business, you work for me a year, and then we call it a day. You got your value, and we go from there. So that's what happened. I ended up taking over a couple of books from individual CPAs that just wanted to retire. Uh,
Yeah.
it kind of rolled into, okay, now we're a tax and accounting firm. We went from financial planning to tax and accounting. And then I saw another opportunity where I'm like, okay, well, let's build a relationship with our clients because most accountants, they're very transactional. And as I was building relationship with the client, I started to see more opportunities. I say, okay, well, most business owners, they're the CEO, they're the janitor, they're the cashier, they're the delivery guy, they're, you know, all these different positions. And I'm like, well, how can I help these business owners scale, and how can I take a portion of the load off of their table so that they can focus on the things that truly make them money? So take care of your accounting. Let me take care of your payroll. Let me take care of your bookkeeping. Let me also take care of your major financial decisions of when to hire, how to set wages, how to be compliant, when to invest in equipment, what are the options to finance to expand your business or do a debt restructure in your business. What are some of the options? What are banks looking for on your income statement, on your balance sheet? Or what if there's alternative funding available to raise capital or to go to lenders? So all of these things I already had knowledge and expertise in, working with the bank, working as a financial planner, working with CPAs. And so I'm like, okay, why don't I offer a fractional CFO executive manager to some of these clients? And my first retainer client happened to be um, a commercial printer salesman who had some inventory, and he was doing, he was doing about $8 million in sales. And so I'm like, okay, let's help him out and let's, see if we can scale and, expand his business. He wants to so we got to develop an exit strategy and how to retire and how to sell his business or figure out what to do with the business. And so it kind of, again, rolled into this giant snowball effect to where a point now is we're offering a full executive management retainer. So the next opportunity I saw is, okay, well, there's a big need. Baby boomers have these businesses. They don't know what to do. There's a big disconnect between baby boomers and Gen Z, and even the younger millennials. They don't want to get involved in this. And most of my clients were trade businesses, industrial business. So you got HVAC, plumbing, roofing, construction, warehousing, manufacturing, granite countertops, and so forth. None of the younger generations want to deal with these types of businesses. They're boring businesses. They have a
Yeah.
overhead. It's very complex. There's equipment, machinery involved. There's inventory involved. It's a lot to handle, and especially if you're doing $5 to $35 million in business, that's a big obligation to take hold of and to inherit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, if you can't rely on your kids to take over the business, now what?
Yeah.
And so that was a huge opportunity to say, okay, let me develop and help get your business financially accurate, where investors can come in and take a look at your financials, your income statement, your balance sheet, your protocols. Do you have at least a foundation where the business can run itself and be profitable, where the investors are attracted now and they want to buy your business? Or if you're in a hand downward business to second, third generation, one of the problems and pitfalls is, well, then they have to pay your pension because if they can't come up with financing, then you have to still pay the seller some type of pension. right? So if I'm a dad, if I'm a father, I have this big business, I'm going to pass it down to my son. I want to slowly get him taking on more responsibility, but at the same time, he's got to pay me.
Yeah.
Well, you're putting an extra burden on the next generation that you never had because what if you want six figures of income and you want to retire? Well, that's six figures times the amount of years that you want to have the business. Well, what if you need 20 years of income? 20 years at $100,000 or more
That's
of
a
income,
pretty quick.
that's a big overhead obligation that the original owner never had to deal with. And so that's why we rarely see second, third, fourth generation businesses because of the improper planning. And so we want to make sure that there's an actual plan. And on top of that, well, what if your son fails in business? Then there goes your pension, right? There goes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
unless you want to jump out of retirement at the age of 85.
Come back in again. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And running a business is extremely stressful. So I'm assuming it's not good for your health either, right? So these are questions that when I talk to potential clients, I said, well, what about this? Okay, you're planning on passing it down to the next generation. Well, how are you going to get paid? How are you going to
Yeah.
see that the business is actually going to be profitable for the next 10, 15, 25 years? You know,
Yeah.
and if it's not, then what's your plan? Are you going to get out of retirement at age 80 and go back into a stressful business owner life? No, you know. So do you know what investors are looking for? So if you're going to sell it to private equity or you're going to sell it to a new buyer, do you know what they're looking for to make sure that your business is marketable and is attractive for someone to buy it and feel very comfortable buying your business at a fair valuation on top of that?
Yeah. 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 I
There's
really
a
see your passion come through. Sorry, keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, there's so much so much opportunity because I've been a business owner since I was like a teenager. I started knocking on doors selling Cutco knives.
Me
Um,
too, actually. Fun fact,
yeah,
me too.
I was selling Cutco knives at like 14, 15 years old, door to door. I was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners back then. And that's when, you do door to door sales, like you can sell anything after that
Yeah. It
because you're
builds grit, that's
getting
for
the
sure.
door, you're getting the door slapped in your face every single time, and you get to 30 houses, and somebody finally says yes, and they're just feeling sorry for you.
It's funny, man. That emotional, dare I say, pain is very relatable because that's exactly my experience with Cutco. I eventually asked a few friends, and they're like, "Fine, we'll take pity on you. Come through."
Yeah, we'll take pity. We'll get you some hot tea because it's cold. But we're not going to buy anything from you. We just felt
Yeah,
bad that you were doing.
exactly. Yeah, that
But
is hilarious.
that's how it was. That's how sales was when I was growing up as a teenager. I built a contracting business doing that. So, I learned some trades of exterior painting, carpentry. My first real business was doing exterior painting and carpentry. I hired a bunch of my high school friends to go on their rollerblades. I said, okay, target the wealthiest suburbs in Chicagoland, and I will pay you $10 cash for every qualified lead so I can do a free estimate and sell.
Yeah,
And my friends on rollerblades were making $50, $60 an hour cash on their rollerblades, knocking on doors, giving out pamphlets, talking about free estimates on, painting their house or doing any carpentry, whatever it is. And so that became, for 2 years, that was
I
my
gotta
bread.
say that's kind of poetic, man. Like came full circle. You started at the age of 14, getting into the trades, and here we are. Fast forward after your stint in J.P. Morgan, and much of the corporate side, you're now coming back into full circle on the back end of this. Instead of selling them stuff, you're looking behind the books and sort of helping them out.
By the way,
That's
my
huge.
family thought I was crazy, the whole season. Then they're like, "Where'd you come from?" Because no one in this world would do what you do. Like, no one would
Yeah,
on board do this craziness. Funny joke, because I'm Hispanic, right? So I'm doing my trade business. I'm doing the at 18, 17, 18, 19 years old, I'm painting houses, right?
Yeah.
And I'm working from sun up to sundown, with my team, and I'm so exhausted every single day. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm not that type of Mexican. I can't do this. I'm not that type of Mexican. I can't do the physical labor from uh, from dusk to dawn. I had it after 2 years of doing. I made good money, but I mean, I had it, and I called my parents, and I barely passed high school, by the way. My parents like, okay, well, if you don't want to work hard and be physical labor, then you got to go back to college. You got to go back to school. And so I had to get my grades up. I had to go to community college for a year and a half to get my grades up, accepted to a qualified university. I went to DePaul University here in Chicago, graduated with honors, and now, you know, came full circle of everything. So
I
now,
mean, I was gonna say when you look back, like whether you went to community college or not, like having that JP Morgan experience, which is really a huge experience to have, right? To now coming on the other side of starting your own business, and the way you've described it, there's a real need that you're solving for. Business is booming for you, and in this time, it's a huge opportunity. So when you look back, it really comes back to the same thing. It's poetic. It's poetic to see how things worked out.
yeah. And another thing too, here's another thing too is, you know, our world of technology, AI, robotics, are changing the way business is done, and it's so fast, it's so rapid. I'm in these trade industries that really want nothing to do with AI. They want
Yeah,
nothing to do with any technology. A lot of my clients still have paper files for everything. And so it's another opportunity to introduce technology. It's another opportunity to introduce AI, another opportunity to introduce robotics, another opportunity to scale their business and moving to
absolutely.
the new age. And again, I can speak the language because as an older millennial, I've, I grew up with baby boomers. I grew up with no computer there's no technology. And yet now here we are, and I'm pretty efficient with AI. I use AI every day.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like that bridge that can connect these retiring baby boomers with this new generation. And I know kind of all the angles that people are looking for to make
Yeah.
business marketable and profitable.
Yeah, I'd like to get into a little bit about your business, but just before we do, I mean, it's very clear that you've evolved Golden Tree into much more than its sort of origins, right? Which was the traditional accounting firms, the CPAs that you got into, to then addressing the pitfalls and the shortcomings or the challenges within the industry, and combine it with, dare I say, Eric's touch, right, of getting creative to address problems. I think that's huge. And so, question I got to ask you, and I ask because I share a little bit of the similar, background coming from corporate, starting your own business. What motivated you to break away from the big institutions to start your own thing, your own entity?
Well, when you bring in millions of dollars into a big bank, it's nothing to them. And for the amount of money that you bring into these corporations, you get barely a fraction of that in compensation. Your responsibilities are just as much as if you own the business, except you have no control over your compensation.
Mm,
You have no control over whether your boss likes you or doesn't like you. You have no control over your performance reviews, really, besides the perception of your boss. And so, to me, I just wanted to be above what the normal everyday person was. And the only way to
yeah,
do it is to really own your own business. So, if you really want to be wealthy, you have to be a business owner. You have to have control over your performance and your compensation. Otherwise, it's going to take a long 40 years in your career to get even close to what you could produce as a business owner. And so I made the decision. Um, and two, I have that entrepreneur mindset. It's extremely for an entrepreneur to work corporate. I will tell you, I've gotten fired by many jobs because of my entrepreneur spirit. And in some cases, I knew more than my regional managers, my top management team, and because of that, corporate politics plays into it, and now you're
Yeah.
all fired. So,
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. You know, it's I was having a conversation with someone else, and the one thing that came out through that conversation became my calling was I don't really care what the problem is. If it's a problem worth solving, I want to solve it. And so I think the way you're describing it is when things get in the way of that pursuit, it starts to become a bit of a roadblocker. And naturally, there's a fulfillment aspect of it. And with financial freedom comes a freedom of time. And I think it's a very interesting dilemma, especially for founders. If we get there, we'll get there. But for founders, small businesses, they enter this new space where what corporate gave was a steady paycheck, a defined job. But when you enter the small business, you start to deal with a lot of other things that come at you. And with that, you get the control of the business, but also you get caught up with that time piece of, the more I need to give more time. And so it's an interesting balance that comes around. And I appreciate you sharing, very honestly, like it was the motivation of coming out was control over your business, your thing, being able to satisfy the itch of the entrepreneur, all while creating wealth and be in the, in the concept of money and time, whatever it may be.
yeah, yeah, and then also growing up, so my father, who worked at the post office, or U.S. Post Office, for 30 plus years, you know, I saw him day in, day out. You got to ask permission to get a time off.
Yeah,
You gotta, oh, by the way, you're working overtime, even though you don't really want to work overtime, so you're not spending time with your family. You're coming home exhausted after a long day,
yeah,
and it bears down on you emotionally and spiritually, to where, like, if you're doing the same thing over and over again and you don't enjoy working what you do for a living, you know,
a bit
it,
like torture.
it's torture, and it kills your spirit to be
Yeah,
with your family, even though you might have time for your family. The spirit, it kills it, because the next day you have to go ahead and do it again.
yeah, it's rinse and repeat. You got to get back into it.
And you're constantly in anxiety for the next day, and, like, I don't really want to wake up tomorrow morning and go to work.
Yeah, no, I
You
hear
know,
you, man.
and that's all I'm thinking about as I'm with my kids, as I'm with my wife and my family. Like, all I can think about is I don't want to go to work tomorrow morning because I hate what I do. And
Yeah.
saw it in my dad. It's a horrible feeling, and so I made sure I was never like that.
That's huge, and I think kudos to taking the courage, having the courage to step out and break that pattern and sort of start your own business. And I'm sure, the entrepreneurial spirit that you've had has been a huge advantage or a huge propellant to get you back into that. But naturally, it doesn't take away from the challenge of shifting that mentality, right, from corporate to having your own business. I appreciate you getting into that a little bit. I'd like to come back to what you were starting to get into in terms of the opportunities you see through Golden Tree. Naturally, you started off traditional financial services style. You saw pitfalls. You're now coming in and you've put forth this executive of a service model. I'm curious to understand a little bit. I got two different questions, right? We'll get into both. One, how have you seen this executive as a service model or CFO as a service model come to light? Like in terms of the demand, how is it? What's the adoption? What's the experience on the other end?
When I look at the technology that's out today, whether you want to talk about AI, or maybe it's software, or maybe it's robotics, whatever it is, um, today you can probably build a $1 billion business just with one person, right?
Mm,
Using AI, utilizing AI. Today's world, and I think as we move forward in the future, the next couple of years, the requirement of having uh, people present in the office 40 hours plus a week is going to be an ancient, outdated business model. We are today, if we compare the productivity of today's professional versus 10 years ago, I don't know the exact statistics or metrics, but I'm assuming there's some study out there that would at least say we're 10 times more productive in the same amount of time or less than we were 10 years ago. Imagine 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So because of the technology that we have and that we can leverage and the efficiency behind it, I don't believe there will be a business that will need a required 40 hours a week to really be as productive as we were again 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm banking on or I'm betting that my business model as a fractional executive management team, as long as there's good infrastructure in that business, you may not need a full-time executive run your business, honestly. Uh,
Mm,
you
I
know,
got you.
and so as time goes on and as technology evolves so quickly, I just feel that you don't need that much time in the workplace to get the same, or if not 10 more times more productivity done in your business. Uh,
Yeah.
my bet, that's my wager, and that's what my business model is banking on is, you can run a multi-million dollar business literally with a part-time executive management team.
And are you seeing that with your client base today? Because I know you mentioned a few of them are starting to adopt this.
Yes.
That's positive early signals in encouraging
We're,
that bet.
we're talking we're talking businesses that have exceeded $70 million a year. And we're talking about industrial businesses. So if we can run an industrial business part-time as executive management, yeah, I start to see it a lot. Our biggest client, I'm in there twice a week at most, and I can get probably a week or two's worth of work done in one day.
That's huge. And I mean, actually, there's a lot of, I mean, when we look at businesses, right, it comes down to three. I'm a management consultant by training, but so by profession. So I like to think in structures. So people, process, systems is a way you can break any business down. And so to be able to allow for what you just described, naturally you have to have the process and systems in place to be able to
Yes.
do that. And I think
Yes.
that starts to get into the second question that you started to talk about with technology and AI. I'm curious to understand both for yourself, but also for your clients, what macro trends, be it AI, robotics, the reshoring, right, of bringing a lot of things back to the US, are you starting to see influence your client base?
Yes, I think the tides are turning, especially with the current administration of purposely bringing back core manufacturing, purposely making sure that, with the influx of immigration now becoming the opposite of what it was with the previous administration, wages are going up.
Hmm.
The pool of employees are mainly now only American, and so now you have to offer American wages. You know, uh, the companies are getting audited on their I-9s. They're verifying that you are legally hiring U.S. citizens, not undocumented individuals. And so that's part of our protocol that we go through a checklist. And so, when you have these types of audits, when you have OSHA audits, when you have, the Department of Labor that comes in and audits your payroll, you want to make sure that you're compliant. I mean, some of these manufacturers and businesses, they may not be compliant. And they've been
Mm,
like that for decades, and they've been getting away with it. But I will tell you that, things are going to come down pretty quickly, and you'll be left behind if you're not integrating AI into your business, regardless of whatever business you have.
right, right
Mm.
on.
And so, as long and to your point, when we identify these potential clients to be put on retainer as a fractional executive management or a fractional CFO, um, a lot of the protocols and standardized operating procedures are there. There might be certain ones that are broken, but the baseline is there. There's proper infrastructure. It's just a matter of making some small tweaks. Right.
Mm,
And so with these established protocols, because we have clients that have been in business for almost 40 years.
yeah.
So they had to have had some type of proper infrastructure and SOP procedures. They have the handbooks of what needs to be done. They have a blueprint. So, but they just need help in that transition is, okay, how do I exit? How do I make my business marketable? And so we're not talking about extremely distressed businesses. We're talking about business owners that really don't know how to transition out of their business. It
Got you.
runs, it operates, they're
Yeah.
semi-retired in their business, but they don't want to put more effort into cleaning up the books. They don't want to
Yeah.
put effort into, stacking up their balance sheet with more assets. They don't want to put the effort into scaling their business beyond, whatever X millions of dollars that they're doing, because again, they're getting paid good money. Why mess around with it? What's that saying goes is, don't fix what's not broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the mentality. But again, the biggest problem to that is, okay, well, how do you retire? How do you really just make sure that and guarantee that your business will be successful without you completely?
Yeah.
Not with you
Yeah.
time, no, without you completely. And whether you want to, collect dividends from your business by having my team operate it for you, or you want to sell it and say, okay, let's sell this thing for a few $1 million and that's our retirement right there. And we'll just do whatever we
Yeah.
to that point. That's where I come in. That's where the ideal client is for us.
And so before we get into a little bit about now Golden Tree, what you just said a little bit just it sounded like you connected a few different dots there. And I think the biggest one that stood out here is while processes may be in place, they're not perfect. While systems are there, they're not perfect. But that concoction of imperfection, if you will, it's a bit of a blind spot for the clients until it gets to a point where they want to sort of exit and step back, and
Mhm.
then you start to surface out that hey, actually, your wants and needs are now a little different because you're now thinking about this a little differently. You're thinking about stepping out, be it selling it, running it on autopilot, whatever it may be, and that conversation, I think, unlocks that potential for Golden Tree. It sounds
Mhm.
like.
Let's increase the probability that your business will succeed beyond the point of you being there. Well, and beyond the point of view, actually, what happens if you're no longer here in this world? I will increase the probability that your business will continue your legacy, or at the very least, we get a marketable valuation of your business to
Yeah,
be able to exit, right? And
yeah,
so, whether that means, debt restructuring, fixing up some protocols, and sometimes even having a whole new team, will the simple morale of your employees and the engagement level, like we see this the first 90 days we onboard our client. It's pretty cool when we onboard our client as a fractional executive management retainer. Employees start to become more engaged.
mm,
It's a new style. We're getting to know the employees when we're at the office. All of a sudden, without doing anything, productivity skyrockets the first 90 days, and I'm writing that motivation. I'm writing that morale of, hey, there's a new change up. What's going on? I better get back to work.
yeah, yeah. No,
There's
I hear you.
consultants coming. I want to make sure I present my value. And all of a sudden, productivity increases
Yeah.
30% plus. And I look like, a superhero in the first 90 days without really doing much besides, adjusting here and there,
I think
getting
that's the beauty of change management, right? And cultural, and I think given your background within corporate, yeah, I'm sure you can see this that culture change it's a very slow, often tough process for these large, corporates and conglomerates. Just given the bureaucracy and the politics that go behind that, when you come into the smaller plays, it's easier to unlock these change management sort of levers that come around, and whether intentional or unintentional, whether directive or indirect, I think the results on that or the ROI on that is very encouraging. And so I'm not surprised to hear how you look like a superhero because it makes a lot of sense. At the same time, it's also very cool to see how quick that change starts to come into place. And so, getting a little bit about Golden Tree, then I'm curious now for you personally in your business, what are some of the key metrics or milestones that you measure today for your success?
I mean, besides going into performance metrics, the biggest thing I love to hear is my clients tell me on a daily basis, "Hey, I'm so glad we got you on. It just feels so much better to unload responsibility, even if it's a little bit at a time." Because some owners, they don't want to give you the full reign. They're just like, okay, I'm going to test you. I'm going to add maybe 10% of what I do, and then we'll kind of go from there. Others take the whole thing, take the
Yeah,
helm and run it. I
yeah,
get you. So both parties, both different types of owners, they're just so I guess relieved is the key word. They're relieved that they have someone that's competent, that's experienced, that has a professionalism, that knows what he's talking about. He's been in this situation. The team's been in this situation many times. It's a relief to be able to trust somebody with your business that you've built over the last few decades. This is
yeah,
your baby. This is what you created. But to be able to leverage somebody else, it's a huge relief. And I can't say that enough because I feel it from our clients. I feel the amount of relief and the amount of stress let go because again, you're always on as a business owner. Even if you're trying to be semi-retired in your business, there's always something that's going to pull you back in. And now all of a sudden, the stress, the anxiety, oh, how's cash flow? Oh my God, are we going to make payroll because we're having a bad month? Or we're forecasting, 10% down from last year. What's going on? The amount of stress and anxiety that business owners feel is so much. But when we go in there, okay, it's kind of not my problem anymore.
so that's actually comes back to the motivation piece of why you do this. It sounds like that sense of value add on a personal level also motivates you quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
only
so
drawback is I get the stress and
I
anxiety.
was just gonna say like that becomes a little bit of an interesting balance there
It
too.
doesn't go away, it just
It
transfers.
just transfers.
But I love what I do and I'm so happy that my path has led me here. It took a while to get to where I feel like I'm finally at the right position, the right offer, what I've identified my ideal client. Like it takes a while for a business owner to really hone down to really identify what their core ideal client is. Because now
Yeah,
I can match the language, I can match the emotional intelligence of my client because now I fully understand what they're going through. And to
yeah.
me, when I talk to them, they know this is completely genuine and I know exactly how they feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That's a very powerful advantage to have. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's one thing to, to really hone in and know your ideal client profile to then go after. And I think it's a whole different, advantage or power move to be able to connect with them, not just at the business talk level, but almost at an emotional level where you understand their day to day. And that I think catapults both what you're talking about earlier with the change management. There's trust that comes in right away. There's a lot of faith and excitement that comes with that. And I think that's huge. Curious, actually, you mentioned, a little bit of the performance metrics. I'd like to get into that a little bit to understand as well. But also, you've now figured out your ideal client. How do you find them? How do you hunt them down? How do you acquire them?
they're kind of everywhere. Whether they're in LinkedIn, whether the other day I just from my client has his warehouse is in Industrial Park, and I'm like, well, you guys have been here for 38+ years. I'm sure you guys are familiar with all of your neighbors in this neighborhood, or people are familiar with you guys around for so many years. So a lot of times, I'll take a little break, maybe go to lunch. Instead of going to lunch, I'll go across the street. I'll go across the street. I'll go down the block, introduce myself. Hey, by the way, just so you know, we're working with, X company, which is your neighbor. I think, yeah, oh yeah, we've known them and the owners. We've known their whole family. They've been in the neighborhood for 30+ years. We do business with them every day. I just want to let you know, hey, we're the new executive management team for the owner, and I just want to introduce myself and establish a relationship now with you. Is maybe we can collaborate in some fashion because you've already done business with my client. This is what we do. If this is something that we can talk about, let's talk about. And after a 5-minute talk, they're like, wow, I didn't even know there was a business that does what you do. So kind of like, oh my God, I didn't know that there was such a service out there that can really you can run my business for me. And so yeah, that's canvassing is the easiest way where we get, we can get 5 to 8 clients on one industrial park on the same block, you
That's
know?
such a huge advantage as well that comes into this, just given the fact that they're traditional businesses to start off with. They occupy a good amount of physical real estate and they've been around for a while. All the core ingredients of doing exactly what you're saying you're doing with canvassing.
And then when people find out, my clients, they're chatters, they're chatterboxes, right? So they have other businesses that are friends or family members that have businesses. They have colleagues or, they have vendors. They start talking. They're like, "Yeah, I got this new team. They're running my business. Oh my God, it's probably the best decision I've made." And they're like, "What are you talking about? Fractional executive man? What your CFO is what part time? I don't understand it." And then they get, they start talking. All of a sudden, I get referrals, you know? So,
That's huge. So coming back to Golden Tree a little bit, what are some of the performance metrics that you personally track for, to measure the success of your company?
of my company. Oh, so, one of the things that we're doing is obviously we're tracking revenue. I'm tracking ratios, more of like an accounting level of what my balance sheet is, what my income statement is. What I want to do is I want to make sure to be able to always attract um, you know, experienced expert level professionals to become advisors. Someone that has experience building businesses, maybe they have experience in finance, accounting, maybe they have experience in M&A, because we're working with traditional businesses. We're working with perfecting their infrastructure and their foundations so that they become marketable. So really, I look for people because people are my biggest asset when it comes to doing business. Without the proper people on my team, like I can't push my own. So I need to be able to leverage my bookkeepers, my CPAs, my enroll agents, my business advisors, and some of my partnerships and affiliations that we have with attorneys, with lenders, with banks. Like we have a lot of relationships with all of these different groups. And the strength of these relationships really provides me all the resources it takes to come in and make any business today. The people behind me, the people on my team is really what drives the success of my business.
Yeah,
Because this is right now a big
people
reputation.
business. Yeah.
If you don't have a good reputation, you can't expect to grow.
Which makes a lot of sense because reputation also is a very core tenet for the kind of clients that you've described. So it goes hand in hand with having that come through. And it starts to the way you're answering this, it starts to seem like, I think if we were to flip this question on its head now, where the question is, where do you find the most bottlenecks in your current business today, be it in your operations or whatever? It sounds like people is a big space that you're starting to deal with. Are there others as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've recruited people from family offices. I've recruited people that have worked in M&A. I've recruited accountants, as well. It no matter who I bring on the team, there is a different aspect when you're working with small business and growing and scaling it. It's different from the corporate world. So I have to be very careful with who I bring on the team because if coming direct from corporate, it may not be the right best fit because again, they just don't have enough experience to handle all the different angles that come as
You're absolutely right. Once again, it comes back to that culture shift that we're talking about because one of the pieces is two slightly way different ways of thinking. There's going to be a little bit of friction that comes up, but the most important thing is you have the cultural mindset, the systems in place to bubble those tensions up and come up with a solution that neither entity on their own would ever come up with. And having that blend of a corporate mentality who has the experience of small business inherently within them, they see the two sides of that tension. So I can definitely see how finding those kind of folks can can be both a unicorn in finding them, but also they're really value add, and they join, and suddenly the reputation and the longevity, the legacy of Golden Tree is also contingent on that, which is huge. Other than that, curious to understand for you today and where you want to go tomorrow. So we're getting into a little bit like future of what you vision Golden Tree to be. You've had quite the journey so far. You've come from your background at JP Morgan. You've got Golden Tree, and the way you talk about Golden Tree, you've got a lot of love for it, and you've got a lot of motivation for it, which makes a lot of sense. If you had a magic wand to fix one thing, anything that's slowing you down today, other than hiring and finding the right talent, what would it be?
I'm dealing with this problem right now is how do I scale my specific business model? So we have clients in all different states. So our headquarters is in Chicago. And so when we have clients, like for instance, we have clients in Florida, in Texas, North Carolina, Colorado, California. And so if we have clients that want these fractional CFO or fractional executive management, a lot of times with these traditional businesses, the owners want to see the person in the office.
Mm,
And for the fintech companies and the SaaS companies, they don't want to see you. They just want to be on a video call and we'll get everything done in a video call. For these businesses that are more industrial, we're talking construction, warehouse, roofing companies, and so forth, they want to see somebody at the office. And so, to me, it's a bit of a problem to scale because, well, that means I either have to hire somebody locally and take on
mm,
full responsibility for someone that's representing a client in LA while I'm in Chicago. So how does that work? Am I going to be traveling left and right, or am I going to be burning out an advisor by again traveling back and forth, being at the office 1 or 2 days a week? Uh,
yeah,
well, my problem that right now is we do have clients that want to be on retainer. They're out of state. It's a big obligation to travel to them a couple days a week. Uh,
yeah,
so then what? And so that's my issue right now that I'm trying to resolve to attempt to scale my business model because this is something unique. And it does take a lot of focus on my team for one client, and so this is not your everyday accounting client. I mean, we have tax and accounting clients, and obviously all of that business pays the bills. The retainer clients, the ones that are paying 5, 6 figures a year in retainers, those are the clients that we really focus on and we
mm,
home because the quality of our work and performance is contingent on the growth of Golden Tree.
yeah, yeah. That sounds like a very interesting balance, right? Because at one point we're talking about how AI and technology is there to save you time, and here you are now dealing with the other end of it, where you've still got to physically show up, right? And so that's fascinating.
And
And
so,
I,
yeah, like I said, especially with these traditional older businesses that, they want to see you in the
yeah,
office. They don't care about you working remotely. I got to see you.
yeah, exactly. I got to see it to believe it. There's a sense of comfort that comes when you're there, and they get to have a little bit of dialogue too that might not be value add, but it's very helpful to them to be able to have that interaction. And I can see that going a very long way as well. And I think it's also not a surprise because this is your ideal client profile, right? It's these industrial types that are all about the person, being personable and having those real relationships. I know we're coming close to time here. The one last question I got for you is, if we were to now look out ahead, so I asked you about the magic wand to fix something today. If we now look out ahead 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Golden Tree?
Well, if I had a magic wand, I would probably have multiple headquarter locations where these clients are. I would have a pool of experienced advisors in these specific areas. So, for instance, want to add a headquarters in Dallas, Texas. Want to add a headquarters in Miami, Florida, in Los Angeles, California. And essentially build a pool of talent within those metropolitan areas where wow, and now it's no longer an issue to scale. But growing at that pace and putting in the infrastructure in a new city, in a new town. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes capital, and so, you know, even if you had the ability to do all of that, do you really want to grow at that type of warp speed? Because one of the pitfalls of growing so quickly is that you're going to deteriorate your quality of work. And so I don't want to sacrifice any quality of work for any of my clients. So we're going to crawl. If there's a strong forecasted demand of what I'm offering, let's say in Atlanta, well, then it would make sense for me to start the stages to grow an office in Atlanta or establish another flagship, location where I have a pool talented there, individuals there, and start to replicate my model there.
Yeah, basically. And so really it comes down to how you strategically plan out the next 5 years for Golden Tree, right? And naturally you use data that you've got to be able to guide where to go, how to do it, what makes the most sense. And I can appreciate the hunger for that growth because there's a lot of value that you've got and you see that you're delivering that, so people really should benefit from it. And I also can appreciate the double-edged sword of quality often comes at the cost of growth or vice versa, right? And so finding that middle, that balance, I think ends up being the unicorn that very many people look for, those who run their companies. That's huge. Erik, thank you so much. Today we heard from you. In your experience going from your Fortune 100 finance company to building your own firm, and that's been a real game changer for the business owners that you work with. This fractional model of executive management as a service model or CFO as a model. I think I've learned a lot, and I really appreciate you taking the time to educate me and then the rest of the listeners here. And I'm sure that the clients that you've helped restructure and scale they're going to benefit a lot from this as well. And it's clear Golden Tree is on a very unique trajectory, unique path. So I once again thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to be with us today.
Yeah, definitely come visit us on our website, goldentreewealthpartners.com. Look us up on Google. Again, perfect star review. I love it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
we're going to
We'll make sure to
continue.
throw a link in the description for the folks that are listening as well.
Yeah. We're gonna make sure that we continue to be a 5-star on all aspects. So again, nothing but rave reviews. But I think this business model, which I think I'm pioneering, I believe, because I haven't heard anyone else really talk the way I talk about my business model. Um, there's other fractional CFOs that have a completely different model than what I have. So in terms of what I'm describing to you, I think I'm pioneering it. And again, I'll have solutions to scale very, very soon. So watch out for watch out for the growth, and I look forward to it.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it. Folks listening, please do check out Erik's website and Golden Tree and give him a follow as well. That brings us to the end of this episode. This podcast is sponsored by Algo AI Partners. We help fintech services companies and businesses scale using smart AI solutions. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, just click the link in the description below. Thank you.